Domain 6 is all about the web interface workflow, dashboards and reports. You're going to have to demonstrate, and I think for very good reason, you're going to have to demonstrate the ability to understand how to get the best out of the information that was in XOR, how to create the best workflows for your customer, and how then to present the best information to them and run reports and so on. So for the first chapter of web interface workflow, dashboards and reports, is navigating the web interface and query the system data. Okay, so obviously we've seen, it's going to full screen that. So we've seen this over and over again now in many videos. This is the home screen, and these are the unassigned incidents that are currently on the system. We can see, and then we can go back, and you'll notice the bar at the top there also changes every time. Today's new incidents, so any incidents that are coming today, that's green at the minute. Just to quickly run through this search at the top, you've got status, so that is not status closed and not category job. Okay, so you need to be able to demonstrate as well how you write a meaningful search. When you've written your meaningful search that's specific to you, or just something you think should be used, you can then put that on save queries, and then you can query that later on. Okay, so here we've got the active instance by severity. That high, low, and unknown. If we go to click on the high, you can see that the search has now changed, and that is now not category job, and not status archived, and not status closed, and severity high. And then we can see here we've got all the high severity incidents that are currently in the system. Going back, we can then click on low, and again it brings up all the low severity incidents. So you've also got across the top here, you've got the type. If there was multiple types, you would see them in there. If you wanted to go by owner, then you can see the owner. Obviously we've got the owner at the end there, but just to demonstrate that this can actually now, you can change these as you need to show what you need to show, and then that is then stored against your dashboard, and then when you log in, that is what you'll see. Okay, the slide out menu is home, obviously, as we've seen before. We can go to reports, and we can run the report, so we can do last 30 days, and then download that report. If I can, hang on, because that's in JSON format, so if you just give me a second. Then a little bit of quick notepad ++ foo there, and we can see that this is the report that we downloaded. The name critical and high instance, which is the one we downloaded, created by dbot. System true, it's a system report, it's not locked. We can see that there's all the information here from all the instance that we've got within that time period. The owner, severity, and that's the reporting side of things. That's fairly straightforward. You can't really sort of go wrong with that. So then, following down from there, you've got incidents. Incidents are what we've seen these lots and lots of times now, and then you click into it in order to investigate it. Got the war room, which is where you collaborate. That's everything's the collaboration and the any enrichments or any information that's found from any of the indicators is in there. The work plan shows you the work, the playbook that was run against it, and in this particular instance, it's a default playbook. So if we were to just quickly review that, I can put a completion note in, mark it as completed, and then it runs through and says, awesome. Evidence board. So as you come into looking at the varying things, you can then add these. So the varying indicators and the issues that you've got here. So if we go to, so this one here, just for instance, and we want to mark that as evidence, we can mark it as evidence. Video. And then when we go to the evidence board, there it is, and you can remove it, you can edit it, you can export it. Really what you need to be understanding and what you need to look at is the fact that rather than, I mean, I'm sure we've all been in these positions before where you have an instance come in and certain parts of management are aware of it and they're using one particular messaging system. Other engineers are using email to communicate this, and then there's somebody in the middle trying to correlate all this information. There's somebody trying to make sure that at the end of it, when you have to do an RCA or root cause analysis, you end up in a situation where you've actually got timelines that differ because people aren't writing things down at the time they're being done, and there's evidence that is lost because people have cleared the scroll back on their putty sessions or something like this. Whereas with this, you have everything from the moment you start to the moment you finish, and you bring people into the war room, you invite people in, and everybody is talking and collaborating within one specific environment within your war room. And through that and through the role-based access, you then have people that you can discuss a solution, you can discuss a course of action, and then that course of action through integrations and APIs can be taken directly from in here, added to the evidence board, and then it's all contained. And then when it comes to reporting it, you just run a report against that incident. Okay, so then you have related instance, which is, and you've got a sliding scale of the instance that were similar to the one that you've got now. Date range is 30 days before, 30 days after. That can be changed, so 30 minutes before and after. And then you can view the instant that it says is similar, and you can see why it's similar. In this particular instance, it's the web server, because I actually made a bit of a mistake there. I decided to log all my stuff to my engine, which I must show you. Log all my stuff to my engine for syslog, and it logged absolutely everything and blew away all my commands in like 2 seconds flat. So the canvas is somewhere where you can start to build up a picture of events and a picture of where similarities are, and you can start to see if somebody, say if you've got a user that is constantly being targeted, you can see that pattern start to emerge, and then that allows you then to start looking closer at that particular user. And as you can see in this particular instance, what you tend to do is you tend to look, if this wasn't syslog, if this was like a malware warning, you would then want to look at that web server, because you'd say, okay, what is wrong with this web server? You know, there's something not quite right. And you can send a snapshot of this to the war room as well. So the real thing, the real strength of XOR, and the reason I love it so much, is literally because it is designed to remove all the noise that causes issues with any kind of sim that I have certainly experienced so far. And that is just the huge disconnect you have between action being taken, engineers being taken. You have engineers then that are being taken off the call. You can invite people in through Slack and through Zoom. All that integrates. So you have, say I had an issue the other day where I was on a call with a vendor. We had a situation where we had an entire office down. I was on the call with a vendor. which meant that I had to keep jumping off of the call with everybody else, and I had no way of keeping them updated, and it was a critical situation. Whereas with this, I could have invited the engineer into the chat, and then they can see everything that's happening between us. Okay, so we're going to, leave that without saving our changes because we don't need to. So now we're going to the indicators, and this is sort of the part where we've spoken about this. Again, we've spoken about this before. So we have the indicators here. So our syslog.com is where it went off to, so we can have a look at that. That's the value, and this is then telling us about why it's suspicious, who's ranked it as suspicious. In this particular instance, I don't think it'd be anything to worry about. The related instance, so where it's been seen, the timeline of it, when it was created, when it was cited. It's all cited there, 333, and that's because, as I said, I mean, this is all in different instances, as you can see, and that is because I screwed up my configuration, and suddenly everything was logging. This, of course, is very useful for, you can see the source brands, related instance against particular indicators, and their reputation there, and whether they're expired. So if we wanted to do indicator, so type equals IP and not expiration status, I believe expiration status active. Well, there's none. No, that's because I've got a job running. Expired. Okay, and then we have all the ones that we had there because I've got a job running that expires all my indicators on a regular basis. Automations. Again, this is all fairly straightforward. It makes perfect sense. So the automations are the automations. So these are the code. These run in the background to get the automations. So for instance, that's abuse IP DB populate indicators. And it's looking for blacklisted bad. Execute command, get blacklist for the days, limit, and then confidence rating, and then the Demisto result. So then that's all the indicators were created successfully. That is how it interacts with the Demisto and you. Then more complicated ones. These are all Python. Got the script helper to the side. So if you want to use any of these in your scripts, add a child instance, a given instant, you've got the arguments and what they do there, showing only commands and scripts. And then you've got, again, the arguments and the description there that you can use for scripts. You can view the version history for all automations. You can upload an automation, create new automation, all there from within this. And then obviously you can hide the library if you feel that way out. Jobs. Again, this is kind of going back over what we've already done, but it's important because they want you will be sort of expected to know how you can walk through and how you can change dashboards and so on and widgets. So there's the jobs view. Again, you can add your query, so you can create a query against the jobs. You've got summary view or table view. Got the marketplace. Whilst I'm here, I'll just quickly update my okay, so marketplace, again, as we discussed before when we looked through it previously, and then you have the settings and all the stuff at the top there. Okay, so one of the things it's going to want you to do is it's going to want you to understand that you have all these things in your they're all available to you. So, for instance, if they say to you, okay, where would I configure something to run on a regular basis to expire indicators, for instance, and that would be done within the jobs section. How do I download integrations, marketplace? How do I write automations, and so on? That's pretty much it. We've already been through the dashboards, really, but just make sure that you understand where things are, and they may possibly even ask for things like shortcuts, so you can actually do a go to page, canvas for instant ID, and there we go, and then we can go to the canvas for that, and then you can see that as well you can go to other things. Using the structured query, the appropriate syntax is something that's very obviously I think it'd be concentrated on quite a bit, is what I'm trying to say. It uses the Lucerne query syntax, so that's something potentially you should look at and read up on as well. It is fairly straightforward. As you saw there, it's minus for not status, then you have status and pending, and it does help you as well. It does very much help as you go through. You get plenty of assistance. So if we were to take that out and status, and then you can see that it does offer the, so if we've got pending, and then we can do that. It's worth spending some time around that, because I think they will ask, because the whole thing is about speed and the whole thing is about efficiency. And really, if you can start making your way around everything with just key presses as opposed to having to go to the mouse and point and click, then that does get a lot quicker. There are, and I will add again all the links underneath. There are several documents on keyboard shortcuts, dashboard overview, and things like this, and how to use the Lucerne searches. Okay, so now moving on to summarizing the workflow. You're basically going to need to understand how incidents and tasks and jobs and everything all go together in order to create the workflow through Excel, which makes sense. So if we go on to this one, so here we can see we've got a trigger. You'll need a trigger. A trigger is an incident or a job, and that incident can be automatic, or it can be in response, to an integration, or it can be manually created. And then the trigger flows down through the tasks that are in your playbook, and then based on the outcome of those, you then have a conditional task, and then you can run down to manual tasks. It's all can be mixed, it's all automatically, manually, or both, and that's pretty much the flow of the elements, as it were. There isn't much to say about that one, really. Basically, it flows through pretty much in the same way. When you look at a playbook, you'll notice that it flows through in pretty much the same way as a flowchart does. That's the idea behind it, and that's one of the strengths as well, where you can pick up XOR, and with a minimal understanding of what the different tasks do, you can just drag and drop, put tasks together, put conditional tasks together, and they'll take a logical flow through the system. Okay, so then it's going to ask you to differentiate elements and impact on investigation. So these are just so that you've got an understanding of what the different elements are, how they play into the workflow, and how that ultimately influences your investigation, or what you do, or what actions XOR takes. So as it says there, tasks are the building blocks of playbooks: automations, manual tasks, playbooks, and sub-playbooks. Each step is a task, and they are standard tasks. So a standard task is just something that it does. It's a standard task. So for instance, a standard task would be to go off and just check for user credentials from AD. A conditional task, which is, if, say, for instance, following that example, if a conditional task is, okay, is the user a member of this group or a member of this group? If they're in a member of each group, take a different branch on the playbook, and you can run multiple branches together, so they will run down together. The data collection task is where you then send out a survey. This is so important here is one of the phraseologies they use is an unauthenticated survey. So basically within the survey they get a link to XOR, which is unauthenticated. It contains your questions and your answers and all the logic you've got behind that. So you'll have the logic basically. Did you click on a link? Yes or no? And then you'll have a branch that runs off that based on the response. So when they do that, the response comes back, and then you'll take action as a result of that. And that is pretty much how it's referred to. Is how would you, what a data collection task for, and it's for an unauthenticated response to a questionnaire. Okay, dashboards and reports. Dashboards are configured to display summary information. It can be incidents, or just about any information the system can generate. To be fair, you'll then see you can do CPU, you can do system health, you can do employee health, you can look at shifts, you can look at trends. You can create a dashboard pretty much for everything, that's in there. There is unfortunately, I can't necessarily demonstrate creating a dashboard because I don't have a license. I have a community license, which is for obvious reasons hamstrung, because there's no point in letting you do everything for free. It sounds a bit daft, but it's outlined the difference between dashboards and reports, for instance. So you've got types of dashboards. You've got instance, system health, my dashboard, which is your custom dashboard, SLA dashboard, and then you've got the actions within those dashboards. So once you're in a dashboard, you can create a dashboard, another one. You can edit a dashboard, you can import or export a dashboard, and you can share or unshare a dashboard with other users. So you can just create permissions for other users, based on role, can come in and use the dashboard or not. And then of course you can delete or remove it, which would be sensible. Just to quickly go over the difference between dashboards and reports. Basically, it's just wanting you to be able to express that dashboards typically are configured to display summary information about instance, whereas reports they're more for to provide a report, provide a static snapshot of the information at any one time, configured basically to allow you to display the correct information to the correct people, because not everybody wants to see the same information. So the technical team might want to see how many people tried to access a malicious domain during the week, and what that domain was, whereas when you go up to your security officer or your infosec guys, they probably just want to see what malicious domains they're going to, and how those are being possibly delivered to the system. So that's the basic general gist behind the difference between dashboards and reports. So configuring dashboards, as I said, I can't demonstrate it. I'm hoping one day to get a license so that I can. So it is drag and drop methodology. You can see on the left hand side you've got the widgets library. You'll click on add, you'll put it in, and then there's a little gear icon in the right hand corner there, and that is where you'll configure how that is going to be displayed. So for instance, you've got a line chart, my incidents, that's a line chart, pie chart there, and this drop down here will have the different types of widgets, so incidents, SLA, you got system stuff, and so on. It is really intuitive, because the worst thing to do I found with XOR is to try and read more into it than there is. So when you look at it, try and take it, so when you're using like the GUI and stuff like that, it's been designed specifically so you can take it on face value. So when you look at it and it says add, yes, you can add it there, and if you don't want it there, then you literally drag it down to there. You put it wherever you want it, and then last 7 days, it is really sort of just intuitive and straightforward. As I said, I can't necessarily I can't demonstrate it, but additionally to that, I don't think you really need to. There's lots of documentation out there, and you can go and so I put the links beneath. So you go along, have a look, and basically you just have a look at stuff like this, whereas custom widgets created by uploading in JSON format, so you can create a custom widget in JSON, and as I said, they can convey multiple types of data, and that is not an exhaustive list by any stretch of the imagination. Have a look at the documents. Documentation is very good, and one of the things you can do is that it's basically exactly the same methodology as creating a layout. So that's exactly how it works. So if you want to practice it and you want to look at how to do it, once you've downloaded your XOR and you've got it up and running, that's really inappropriate. Once you've downloaded your XOR and you've got it set up with your community license, go on, have a look, and spend some time practicing around building layouts and saving layouts, because that is the same thing. Okay. Right, so now we're going to have a quick look around the playbook so you see how they flow, and you'll see how to sort of create them. And as I say, it's the same methodology for dashboards. So we'll just go through and demonstrate that, and then that is pretty much it. That's going to be the end of the PCSAE course. Yeah, we finally managed to get it done. So I'll see you over at XOR. Okay, so here we are over at Playbooks, and again, this sort of shows just how logical and how easy it actually is. So if we just hide the list, all right, so then we've got that right. So this is what we were talking about with the flow. So the flow is a playbook is triggered, and once it's triggered, it's going to take context data. So whatever comes in as the initial thing for this. So whoever it is, with no filters applied and just unique, so we're not looking for multiple names. And then these are our outputs for the playbook. So this is going to be the account object, where it's going to look for it, and so on. Then we go, is there an account to enrich? So it's looking specifically for, this is a conditional, so it's looking specifically for if there is an account. So is there an account detected within that? Nothing else in that one, no. And if the condition is yes, then get inputs.username and is defined. Okay, so then it goes off and it finds, gets the inputs, gets the username, or it creates the input, sorry, with the username. If not, you can see that else if, it then runs down this branch to the bottom and it's done. But if there is one, it then pops off to Active Directory Query v2. So is it enabled? So it looks for the modules where brand equals Active Directory Query v2, state equals active. So it looks into its modules. It looks to see if there is one there, and if it's okay, if it's working. Then the transformers, no transformers applied because you don't need to. And then that will go off, and that will, I don't think there's any other advanced or times or anything though. And that will go off then, and that will query your Active Directory with how that is defined. So how your integration is defined. It will use that integration and to go and get Active Directory details. If it isn't defined, because then this is a conditional as well, so else if it isn't defined, then it just runs through to done and it's finished. So if it is and it's active, then it will go into the this one here, this section here, and then it will go get into the info from the Active Directory account, and that will be part of that. So that will then, I don't think there's anything else here apart from advanced details. And so there it says the task description queries Active Directory and returns information for a specified username. Okay, so then it will do that and it will return the information, and then that then goes back into the context data as that username and the account that it has. So it will pick up things like manager's name and email address and so on. And this you'd tend to use it nested, I would have thought, because with that it's just, I mean, it is what it is, and it comes back with those details. But if it's then nested, then that will provide then input for another branch or another set of playbook tasks. Okay, so this is another good example as well of playbooks. So here it has a nested playbook. Just hide that list again. So playbook is triggered, this specifically for anomaly enterprise forensic search, as it says in the corner. So playbook triggered. The inputs are there. First appearance, time range. I'm not massively familiar with anomaly, but this is a good example for us because it has a nested playbook and it goes into the whole global and local variables. So then the outputs are going to be there. So the job ID of the search, the status of the search, number of scanned events, number of processed files. So this is a context path. So that will work on the data that it gets back. That's a description of what it's going to output. And here, as we go down, so again, we have a conditional by the diamond there. It's conditional. And that is going to be, the typical is anomaly enterprise enabled. And again, you can see modules.brand equals anomaly enterprise, and then modules.state equals active. So again, you can see how it's done. Again, if it is, then it goes down this branch where we've got more tasks. If it isn't, then it just goes to done and closes, so you don't end up with just an open playbook running. So this is a standard task done, as you can see, denoted by that. Initiate forensic search, which is then initiating the search based on the anomaly enterprise is enabled. And then we move down to this one, if I can click on it, which is the generic polling. And so this is where we have the concept now of the shared globally or the private sub playbook. And you can think of that along the lines of global or local variables. So if it's on shared globally, which we can't do at the minute because we can't edit it. If you remember, to edit a playbook, you have to duplicate it and then edit the duplicate. Shared globally would mean that the next time this runs, it will write back to the global variables within the playbook. So the next time this runs, any information that's gathered there will then be used as an input. Where if it's private to that, then it remains inside that, and then it gets passed on to there as part of its normal outputs. So then get the forensic search results, which is another standard task, and it uses that normal enterprise retro forensic search results. So that is actually the script that it's running. That's the automation that it's running, and then done. And that's it. That's basically how it then goes. I mean, these things become huge. Let's see if we can go this one. This one's a bit bigger, but the logic is always going to be the same. So it's always going to be. I mean, this might be a much bigger playbook. The running the abuse playbook, which is just a section header. Playbook triggered. Context data. So I mean, this is like very much a very different way of looking at it, a different type of playbook, but it all runs the same way. So you're always going to just have something flowing into something making a decision. Based on that decision, you've got a yes or else. Search and quarantine and abuse box. So then in this particular thing now, you would have, if it runs down to yes, that's there. Okay, so you'd search the emails with malicious domains, search emails with malicious IPs, and these will all run together. So where there is just linked multiples there, they will just run, and all that will come down into there. So it's only emails found, so this will then be a conditional, and if there is, then move and quarantine into phishing folder, send malicious quarantine reporting email, all good. If not, so else, send malicious reporting email, because I guess in this particular instance you would probably be saying, okay, well, we haven't found any specifically, but this has been triggered. And then runs down to close the investigation. So you see the difference here as well. Whilst these will all run together because they are part of the same flow, these are all conditional, so these ones won't run together. They'll just run independently depending on which branch you come down, because they're linked to the else, and yes. And then close the investigation, and then done. So really, that is it. PCSAE, I would say, to be honest, you need to just make sure you understand syntax correctly for Python and so on, because there is a few syntax type questions on it. I wouldn't suggest taking any kind of exam dump or anything like that, because there's just no point. There's just literally no point. You can exam dump whatever you want. You can memorize all the questions, and then the first time, because of the breadth and depth of the product, and because it's based on coding, you will then get sat down, and the chances of you being asked to do something exactly as was in the question on the exam is minimal. Because the whole idea behind this platform and these platforms, not just XOR, but all the SOAR platforms, is that they can be put into an environment as a sort of fresh out the box platform, and then the engineer will take that and can mold it specifically to that organization's requirements, their security flows, their already established processes, and you just can't do that with an exam dump. Bone up a lot on Python. Get to know Python. Get to know it fairly well. You don't need it specifically for the exam, but you will need it for working with XOR. Absolutely. If you don't understand how to read Python, you're going to have a hard time troubleshooting any issues that come up. And it's just, as I say, it's just, you don't need to be a Python master to be able to pass the automation exam, but you will need it. Okay, so good luck with it. Any comments at all, just pop them down below. As always, I do try and reply to them as quickly as I can, and it would be really helpful if you liked and subscribed. Okay, so enjoy.